Hey NAI football fans, Corey Thorpe here with another edition of the NAIFBALL podcast powered by AdCraft USA, your custom apparel, merch, and uniform experts. Our friends at AdCraft have been with us for many years now. They've run web stores for us multiple times. These guys are NAI fans and family who are experts in the apparel and merchandise world. AdCraft allows you to take the hassle out of ordering. Let their knowledgeable design and customer service staff handle everything from hosting the store online, shipping the product, and helping your customers so you can get back to the game. Find them online at adcraftusa.com. All right, guys, welcome back to another edition of the NAIFBALL podcast. John, this one is going to be a long boy tonight.
Yeah, so usually we got conferences that are broken into divisions.
Yeah.
The KCAC is still a year away from experiencing their first year of divisions with the addition of Evangel. And but now we get to talk about all of them in one group, just like it's always been for these guys since the 1920s, 10s, maybe early 1900s.
A long daggum
Yeah,
time.
I believe 1906 maybe. I don't know.
Because you're looking at some teams in here with some serious history.
Absolutely. Serious. The worst team we're going to talk about has more wins against Oklahoma than West Virginia does. And currently Oklahoma and West Virginia are in the same conference.
Rocker, stalker.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's and obviously we're talking about Bethany here. Was 0-10 a year ago. Did not have the worst offense in the in the conference.
It's just second worst.
Just second worst. They do return a lot, but they did not have a lot of all-conference production.
Well, you know, just off topic from football, can we just say that Bethany has like one of the coolest names in the NAI, the Swedes?
Especially if you go with the historical name.
In there, yeah.
The Fightin' Swedes.
Yeah, so one of the coolest names. You know, the great thing about the KCAC is that it's a league where a team can go from worst or second to worst and reach back to the top with the right coach. I know they're in the second year of their new head coach, but look at what Coach Harrison did with Bethel.
Yeah,
they had a terrible history, and maybe Bethany can reach back up. And Bethany does have some history themselves.
And as we talk about it a little bit more, there is a lot of coaching turnover in this league, and so there are a lot of coaches that are trying to find their footing.
Yeah, they're a little ahead of the game. They got to retain their coach. A lot of others didn't. The closest school to them lost their head coach to a FCS school.
So we'll have to see
that means much, but go ahead.
Well, we'll have to see. They do lose Larry Hall, their linebacker, with 90 tackles there, but they do retain most of their defense. They return their quarterback, most of their wide receivers, and most of their running backs. So you're talking about most of your team that's coming back.
Yeah, they just got to find identity on defense. They got to be able to stop somebody through the air, through the run. Usually teams that start taking baby steps find a way to stop the run first. Tip the hat if you can beat me through the air, but we're not going to let you bully me at the line of scrimmage. Right. And that's what Bethany needs to find identity in their defense. Offense will eventually come, but like I said, you can't be competitive unless your defense is formidable.
Right, and you're talking about a defense that almost allowed 7.5 yards per play.
Yeah,
that's
it's hard to be competitive when you do that.
I believe in football terminology that's called a sieve.
But they're in the second year of a new era, so excited to see what happens there.
Now the next team up has some really interesting stuff going on, and that's going to be the Friends Falcons here, a team that has had success historically, not as of late, but the folks out in Wichita decided that they were going to dig deep and get some good head coaches and staff there.
Well, I've always heard good things about Friends' track program and weightlifting program. And in the NAI, the track program kind of overlaps sometimes with football players.
I mean, and honestly, let's think about it. The two programs that would easily feed a football program are going to be weightlifting and track.
Which Friends had the worst offense last season, but that doesn't mean much. You got a new coach with a new system that's a proven winner in the conference that has experienced in NAIA playoffs already. What can he bring? You're not going to see the worst offense at Friends University coming this year.
So here's a question for you. How long does it take to transition a normal run-of-the-mill offense to something like the flex bone that Terry Harrison's going to want to run.
Well, the good thing about the flex bone is you're really relying on, 4 to 5 base plays, and there's different variations off of that, but 4 to 5 base plays. It really just depends on your quarterback if he can make reads and whatnot. For the offense linemen, the rules are easy. They stay the same. They're uniformed. That's the beautiful thing about that flex bone is that a turnaround can happen just like that. Look at the major level like Georgia Tech when Paul Johnson first came on the scene, caused issues. And, look at when Cumberland's was in their heyday here not too long ago. They were causing issues. And Reinhardt, when they first started out, they'll tell you, they weren't wing T, but it was wing T when they first started. Right. And they looked good, and that was a first-year program that won a conference title. So I think the turnaround for, Friends could be dramatically fast.
And we talked to Coach Harrison. He said he had a lot of transfers that went through spring ball with them.
Right.
So not only are you returning pretty much everyone except for Cade Nagy and Jagger Bluebaugh, you've got a lot coming back, and you've got a ton of transfers there. We'll talk about what...
I don't see their net yards per play being in the negative like it was last year.
No, but honestly, you've got to turn that defense around as well. It's
right.
6.11 yards per play is not generally going to get it done for you.
Not at all.
We'll talk a little bit about later once we get kind of to the closer to the end.
Yeah.
What the larger trend will be.
Right.
Because there's some overarching things now that you're adding another flexbone team
right.
to the league. What's that going to mean for defenses? But we'll get to that. Next, we move to the Blue Jays of Tabor. They had a above slot almost offense last year, so it wasn't like amazing in the KCAC, but it was definitely above where they kind of rank in this hierarchy.
It wasn't too long ago where Tabor had a great run into KCAC, and they've really fallen off. It's funny, them and we'll talk about Ottawa here in a little bit, but they've fallen off to like the new culture that Kansas Wesleyan has brought, where they just exploded on the scene in Bethel. It'll be interesting to see if Tabor can fight back to get back near the top over there.
And really, that offense went through Andre Renteria at running back, 1,000-yard rusher with 11 touchdowns at almost 5 yards per clip every time he touched the ball. But you're losing him. How do you replace basically your biggest weapon on offense?
The NFL draft will tell you that, even though Andre was super valuable for the Tabor Blue Jays, running backs are replaceable. It just depends on the offensive line you have bringing back. Yeah. And it seems like that unit's going to still be pretty good for Tabor next year. And the next guy up, it's just got to go.
They're just going to have to defensively be a little bit better than they were. 10th in defensive yards per play, which is below slot almost for them, which is where they got their negative net yards per play.
Right. Let's say, St. Mary, the Spires over there, I believe they got a new OC coming in this year, but just the major improvements they've made from 19, 20 to now to 21 to get to 3 wins, because they were over not too long, either last year or the year before.
It hasn't been that long.
They're at the bottom of the barrel of the KCAC.
And now you've got to sit here and, for St. Mary at least, you've got a flag football team too, and you can't have your you can't be outplayed by your women's team. Sorry, girls. I love flag football, but that'd be a point of pride for me if I were on the men's team.
Right, absolutely.
I can't get outplayed. They are returning Domingo Don, who had 2 kick return touchdowns. I mean, after the first one.
Yeah, it's funny. Every time we see these kick returners, they're just impact players. They need to find the way to get them conventional offense.
Right, because he only had 78. He only had 78 yards catching.
That's crazy.
Get the man the ball. And they do lose Rafael Sanginas there with almost 50 tackles and 2 forced fumbles. You've got to figure it out if you're St. Mary's, keep making those strides.
Right. Well, we got in the notes up there how much they're returning.
Yeah.
And this is a team, like we said, that just went over not too long ago, fought their way to 3 wins. Can they get to 500 this year? That'd be a huge question.
We'll have to see. So kind of those four teams there, your St. Mary's, your Bethany, your
Friends.
Your Friends.
Right.
Those are going to be, and your Tabor, those are kind of your bottom four teams. From there, you start to get to the middle of the pack.
Right.
Out of those four, no hate on the rest, but I definitely see Friends making the largest jump this year. So as we get there, we're going to start to see more and more coaching turnover. Ottawa's head coach retires from coaching football. They promote Nick Davis,
who is a Brave himself.
Right, exactly.
One of these situations in AI where a former player is now the head guy. Really cool to see. Corey, I don't know if you've ever seen Ottawa pictures of their weight room, but it looks absolutely fantastic.
Oh, it does.
It's gorgeous. It's kind of like Tabor. Ottawa is kind of like KCAC royalty.
Oh,
where,
yeah.
Talking about history, they have a ton of history winning the conference.
I'm about to say, I'm looking up the picture now that a buddy sent me not too long ago.
Yeah.
Of them wearing the 2000 KCAC championship shirts,
Right.
and right smack dab in the middle of he and his buddy is Steve Ryan.
Wow. Yeah.
Right before he went to Morningside.
Wow.
Coach Ryan don't look much different.
No.
Coach Ryan has aged rather well. For Ottawa, you've just got to figure out, you had a really good defense. You're not returning a whole lot, and you're losing a whole lot on that side, whether it be Jacob Garcia, defensive line with 14 tackles for loss, or Colby Johnson with almost 130 tackles.
What they did a great job of last year was forcing a lot of turnovers. Yeah. They gave their offense chances. I think their offense this year just has to capitalize on the turnovers the defense gives them.
Absolutely. They do return defensive back and kick returner Devin Johnston, who absolutely contributed to those turnover numbers with 2 forced fumbles and 8 picks.
Yeah, he's in double digits himself.
Yeah, exactly. So, and a kick return touchdown. You talk about those athletes.
Yeah, X factor.
Could you see him maybe get some time on offense if the offense scuffles a little bit? Maybe get him out in space a little bit.
Well, I think just making sure that he's the best he can be at defense, I think they'll probably rest him up. Unless it came down to it. You never know.
Hey, man, they could give him the Rodney Harrison
best
treatment.
Player, yeah.
And now we have McPherson, man. I tell you, McPherson over the past
another program that has made a lot of strides.
Holy Christmas.
Their defense has gotten better because it used to be the bottom of the barrel.
And right here, they're 6th and 7th, and they are the first team in the KCAC here who has that positive net yards per play. Now, it's only by 3/100ths.
But still.
But this is a team who, for a couple years, folks have been telling us, man, you need to watch out for McPherson. They do return Jonathan White, who had 10 scores. They return Preston Howard on the offensive line, but you lose 2 speedsters.
Yeah. Well, we talk about a lot that, the most important position is returning your quarterback. And then if you're turning at least half the wide receiver room, you got something going. That's crazy. Jacoby Reddick was with McPherson last year.
Yeah, he was transferred from Bethel of Tennessee and got a chance out in Kansas.
I forgot all about that. Yeah, I think he's back home in Florida looking for a coaching job.
Best of luck to him. Here's the thing about the KCAC that we've seen a little bit so far, with maybe 1 or 2 exceptions. I can only think of 1 off the top of my head.
Right.
I think every team in the KCAC is bringing back their signal caller.
And that's absolutely ginormous. It's the most important position on the field.
But when everyone's bringing back their signal caller, that makes it hard to make the next jump.
Right. I totally agree.
And so you look at a team like Sterling, 6-6, 5-5. They lose the Victory Bowl to Segu, who who will talk about their new head coach with an NFL pedigree a little later on.
Right. Well, we got Darren Jackson, the new head coach of Sterling, coming over from Trinity Bible. And, he's inheriting some good talent here.
He definitely is. They had a decent offense and a decent defense, had a 1,000-yard receiver that's coming back. You've got a guy who had 5 picks in your defensive secondary there, George Powell Jr. But can Sterling take the next step? I mean, it's definitely from here on up. It gets hard fast.
Right. The thing is, Sterling's good enough to finish in the middle of the pack again. But the question is, can the new coaching staff help them fight to the top of the pack? For them, I think it's all about coaching, not about players at this point.
Yeah, I mean, they are bringing back a lot of players, including, again, their quarterback,
right.
Their wide receivers, most of their defense, and a lot of their running backs. But at this point, it's making that next step,
right.
Whereas every team from basically here on up has taken a step towards making people nervous,
right,
with the rest of the division. And that starts with Southwestern, who, while they had just a phenomenal offense, second in the conference, their defense was not great.
Well, they had 2 quarterbacks get a lot of the reps last year.
They had three quarterbacks
holy cow.
take snaps.
All of them were efficient in the mid-60s, the high 60s.
The one that's not listed here, because he wasn't a all-conference player,
right,
is Brad Cagle, who it got hurt really early on in the season, came back, and they saw what he did last year against Kansas Wesleyan, and they said, we're starting the Coyote Killer again. And they go and they beat Kansas Wesleyan again. I mean,
huge win.
It's like having a lefty one-out guy in baseball.
The jinx of Southwestern.
Absolutely, with their live mascot cat.
Yeah, that's awesome.
If you want a treat, go read about the Southwestern history with the mound builders and Jinx the cat. That is a fascinating read.
Right.
Anywhere you go. But they are returning Brad Cagle, Luke Barnes, and Thomas Yam, all 3 quarterbacks.
Who's going to be the one that gets the call?
Absolutely. They had injuries last year that forced the split. But, man, you're returning a lot of offense. Jackie Coleman, Keyshawn Jones, Andre Jones, Lake Hoffman.
I know the offseason talk is Southwestern, who, returns their head coach. Returns the talent. They're the sexy pick in the KCAC.
I mean, it's hard to pick against them here. And they do retain a good bit on defense, whether it be Shane Rodriguez, Josh Carter, Tavern Williamson. All you're really missing is Drew Smith at linebacker and Keyshawn Wyatt at running back. Otherwise,
which I hate to sound negative, but the running back and linebacker positions are replaceable.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not like offensive line or quarterback or defensive backs.
Right, exactly. And so here's the thing. They're only returning a few of their defensive players. A lot of them were seniors. Yeah. I don't know if for the 6th-ranked defense in the KCAC, whether that's a blessing or a curse.
Right. Well, you can only get better.
Right.
Usually in football, you don't get worse.
And if Southwestern takes a step towards maybe closer to 3rd defensively in the KCAC, they're winning this thing easy.
I totally agree with you.
But then we have Avila, 4th in offensive yards per play, 3rd in defensive yards per play, which puts them 3rd. They were part of this kind of round robin 4-way
tie. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think they all ended up tied, obviously, but man, that Avila Southwestern game was a war.
Right. Well, they were all near the top there. That's what we mean. Yeah. They were all in that top 25 contention. Avila returns Peyton Burke. 1,000-yard thrower, 71% completion rate. Not too much on the ground, but he's efficient. He gets it done.
He was actually, I think if I remember correctly, they listed him as a utility man.
Really?
As well. One of these guys, I know they did. It's an insane stat line with kicks and punts included.
Right.
It's absurd. But you do lose Malik Nesbitt, your 1,000-yard running back, and Andrew Williams, your 1,000-yard wide receiver.
Right. Yeah, that's a lot of returning production they're losing.
That really is. And so I could see, and I hate to say it, because Avila has come out of, I don't want to say nowhere.
Yeah.
But they've done a fantastic job over the last few years.
But they've stayed near the top
right.
the past couple years of the KCAC.
Yeah, and so it's really going to be, man, I keep looking at all these teams, I'm like going, crap, man, they could win.
Right. Well, up next, we got Kansas Wesleyan, who is very familiar with the NAIA playoffs at this point.
Oh, my gosh, yeah.
And they have now sent their past two head coaches, to the Division I level. One at FBS, Drinkle at Army, and now Hendrickson at Western Illinois.
It really is.
How impressive is that?
I mean, holy cow. And now you've got Matt Myers, who was promoted from defensive coordinator to come in and to take the team over, a team that was first in the conference in defensive yards per play. It used to be Kansas Wesleyan was not that great. They had a couple of great players who could make plays.
Yeah.
Looking at Yashak, with your 21 sacks or something crazy like that. Yeah. It was absurd. But they weren't that great defensively.
Right.
They've gotten a whole lot better here, and that's a lot of what they're bringing back is that defense. They're losing a lot of that offensive production, especially
offensive line
at the quarterback position is really where it's going to hurt.
And they're one of the few.
They are one of the few because their quarterback transferred out, Isaiah Randall, 3,000 yards, 63% passer, 36 touchdowns to 7 interceptions.
Yeah, he put up a show.
And he had lots of time left.
Right.
So that's one that you hate to see leave. They lose C.J. Fluker, almost 700 yards rushing, 200 yards receiving. You lose an all-conference running back. You lose two really good wide receivers. Stevie Williams, more of your more Anquan Bolden route runner.
Yeah.
And Aaron Jenkins,
more the speedster.
Your physical specimen. I stood next to that man. He has the size to play football somewhere at the next level.
Right.
And Jake McClure at tight end, you lose Chase Struther on your offensive line, but man, that's a lot.
Don't forget the kicker, man, Aaron Main.
Aaron Main, 38 long, 9 of 11. You do return most of your D. You return a quarterback, one quarterback.
Yeah, but it's hard to replace the one that brought you all the production.
And that's not the one who started most of the games.
Right.
I mean, does Kansas Wesleyan take a step back at the bottom of the 4?
I'm just wondering if Kansas Wesleyan has the potential. They've shown from Drinkle to Hendrickson. Maybe they can keep this culture going for the 3rd round.
It's going to be tough.
Yeah.
Because that's a passel of players.
Well, we're talking about keeping the same culture. Now we move on to Bethel, the Threshers, who also is hosting a new coach who lost their coach to a program that was at the bottom of the barrel.
Yep.
We talked about with Friends. And, A.B. Stokes, he left Bethel, went to the high school level, and now he has came back. How will he do with the best offense in the KCAC from last year?
Well, he is keeping the flex bone.
Yes.
So that definitely plays into what you've already got on roster. Where Keegan Martin, Ryan Junkermeyer, they're on the offensive line are going to be they're going to be seasoned vets at running this. But man, you lose Cam Harrison, you lose Chance Scurry.
Yeah,
those are two huge.
Scurry
pieces.
was huge, especially going up the A gap on the midlines.
I hate that they call him a fullback. I mean, the man was.
Oh, you can call him a four-back if you want.
Yeah, we'll be
the carries.
Absolutely, and so you are missing a lot. Avery Hawkins played in the NAIA Senior Bowl.
Right.
Josh Seabolt, your linebacker, 99 tackles, 26 tackles for loss, 10 sacks. You see a lot from these top two teams, especially to where they're losing a lot of players.
Well, the good thing about somewhere like Bethel is you lose a lot, but your offense works in your favor because you have a system. I know everybody has a system.
Sure.
But a triple option system is just different.
Okay.
You're just ingraining it in the backups like crazy.
So, do you think, though, then, that having friends running the same offense in the KCAC, giving those defensive coordinators 2 weeks of it, do you think that kind of hampers their reload?
One, NAIA coaches are great. It'll be helpful for the coordinators and assistant coaches. Two, NAIA players have short memories. If you don't play these guys back to back, I don't think it's going to be very helpful. Just being honest. Plus, both of them, while they probably share the same base philosophies, will have their own tags and variations off of it.
Yeah, and so that's the question. What wrinkles does Coach Stokes bring that Coach Harrison did not? And so, honestly, I think I'm ready to make my KCAC pick. I think it's going to be pretty cut and dry, and that's going to
go ahead, make it.
And that's going to be Southwestern. They bring back an absolute ton of players, and they have the coaching stability.
Yeah.
And they went to the playoffs a year ago.
We said Southwestern was the sexy pick, but I can't go away from Kansas Wesleyan. I think the culture is going to get them through to be near the top again and to get back in the NAIA playoffs and win the KCAC.
If Kansas Wesleyan holds serve and is still in the 2-3 range, I think that they have done a phenomenal job.
Right. Absolutely.
Because I could see them falling back to the bottom of that top four a little bit.
Right.
So it's if they can hold steady, if Bethel can be in that 2-3 range.
Yeah.
I think Bethel makes a big that makes me high on Bethel next year.
So who's your surprise team that won't win the conference but take a leap?
I mean, I think we already talked about who the obvious one's going to be, and that's going to be Friends.
Okay. I'm going to go with Sterling.
Okay. I like that. I like that pick. Yeah. I think with Friends, I think they have discovered, or they have tapped into a desire to be good at football.
I think having Harrison over there for spring really helps.
Yeah.
With that. But, I just really like Sterling, what they have coming back.
Yeah.
And I really like their offense.
Yeah.
And I think that Coach Jackson will, have his own thing, of course, but I think it's on him and his coaching staff to take them up from a 500 record up to like a 7, 8, maybe 9 wins.
The thing about the KCAC is that there are so many teams that can actually win this thing.
Right.
It's not like...
Well, for everybody, there's so many winnable games on the table.
Right.
There's really, if you think about it, there's only, you could probably say 3 games that aren't winnable for most of the teams.
Sure.
So.
And even some of these mid-tier teams still give the top teams some fights.
Absolutely.
So we'll have to see, and it's definitely going to be interesting next year as Evangel joins the ranks. That's a good move for the KCAC.
Yeah, you're automatically going to get 2 playoff bids.
As long as you can keep in the top 20,
top 20
which
they got 2 last year.
When and the year before.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. When we started this, the KCAC was begging for 2.
Right.
Now, they're begging for 3.
3. You're right.
And so the conference has grown tremendously since we started doing this. They are no longer the butt of the jokes.
Which Evangel gives you public perception of a heavy hitter.
Exactly. And if Evangel's offense can take a step forward this year and be the dark horse that I think they can be.
Right. Wouldn't it be something if Evangel somehow won the Heart and brought over to the KCAC? You have to be rooting for that if you're in the KCAC Central office.
Oh, absolutely.
So.
You know, and I think this switcheroo is good, and I've said it before, for both the KCAC and the Heart. I like the Heart bringing in Missouri Baptist. Right. I think that's a really nice move for them.
Huge, yeah.
And it works well for especially a team like Moval.
Yeah.
To have that Missouri team there
with you.
Isn't Avila a Missouri team as well?
They are.
Okay. I'm not.
You got a few teams that like Benedictine and Baker are in Kansas, but they're also in the Heart.
Right, and so it's hard. It's sometimes hard for
Kansas is the capital of NAIA football.
Oh, it definitely is.
So them, and then behind them Kentucky.
I mean, Kansas is the capital of football at every level besides Division I.
Yeah, absolutely.
With all your JUCOs.
JUCOs, yeah.
Absolutely. So I'm going with Southwestern and Sterling. And you're going with Kansas Wesleyan and Sterling.
Yeah.
I said I meant
I'm
and
going
Friends.
with Kansas Wesleyan, Sterling. You're
yeah,
going
I'm
Friends.
going Friends and Southwestern. So thanks guys for joining us on really a rapid fire approach through the KCAC.
Right.
We will man, we're in the K's here.
Yeah, Mid-South is next, right?
Mid-South is next, and then we move on to the Mid-States. It's when we're recording this, when you get to it, it'll be July. And right now it's very, very late June.
Yeah.
But if you're at July, that means you're only 1 month away from August.
Yeah.
And August means football.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Absolutely. It's going to be a great season. Got a lot of kids coming back to make really good teams this year. So we'll see what it brings. And we'll see what comes out of the KCAC. But for John Cooper, I am Cory Thorpe, and we'll see y'all next week. We hope you enjoyed this episode of the NAIAFBALL podcast presented by AdCraft USA. Be sure to contact them for all your custom apparel, merch, and uniform needs. Thanks also to Mommy Bay Turf and Turf Nation, as well as Leading Edge Fundraising for their support of the podcast. If you enjoy the show, subscribe to the podcast as well as to our YouTube channel. Leave us a review if you're listening on Apple Podcasts. As always, if you'd like to support what we do, head over to patreon.com/NAIAFBALL and become a patron. We can't do what we do without our sponsors and listeners like you.